Hi everyone, welcome to video 2 of the Clarinet Crash Course. At this point you should have watched the first video where we talked about how to open the case and the different parts of the case. If you haven't watched that video, pause this video right now, go back, watch the first video, and then join us here on the second video. If you have watched that video, welcome back, and today we're going to talk about how to correctly assemble the barrel, the mouthpiece, and the reed of the clarinet. So let's begin. So before we put these parts together, the first thing I need you to do is to pull the reed out of your case and out of its reed case. And I'd like you to either put that reed almost entirely in your mouth with the bottom flat part on your tongue, and just let it sit in your mouth as we do this next part of the video, because we need to get this reed wet in order for it to vibrate and make a sound by the end of this video. If you don't want to have the mouthpiece or this reed in your mouth, you can always get a cup of water and drop it in a cup of water, and it can sit there until you're ready to put it on. But let's talk about how to put together this mouthpiece and barrel. So here on the table in front of me, I have my mouthpiece and its cap and the barrel of the instrument. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouthpiece, I'm going to remove the mouthpiece cap, and I'm going to remove this silver part, which is called the ligature, and I'm just going to set those off to the side for a moment. So now all I have in my hand is my clarinet mouthpiece and my barrel. And the clarinet mouthpiece is going to go into the barrel. There are two different sides of the barrel. One side is too loose. It'll be very obvious which is the correct side. The other side is a little smaller, and that's the side your mouthpiece is going to go into. But like I'm having a problem right now, when I try to push this in, I want to push in and twist the parts together, but you'll notice the parts really aren't going in that well. That's because this instrument has a dried out cork. And so in order to make this a little bit easier, this is where I'm going to reach over and pull out my cork grease. I'll uncap it, make sure it's sticking out a little bit. Now a little bit of the cork grease does go a long way, so you don't need to slather it on here. Just touch up a little bit along the surface of the cork. Sit your cork grease down, cap it, put it down, and then rub that cork grease in with your hand. Now, when I go to assemble these again, I line up the correct end of the mouthpiece with the correct end of the barrel. I start to push and twist, and now those pieces are going together very easily. So you can push them together all the way for now. Now I have my mouthpiece and my barrel together. Let's go on to the second part and let's talk about the reed. So here we have a clarinet reed. Clarinet reed looks different on both sides. On one side, you can see the grain of the reed, which gets to a harder, darker part of the reed with a little bit of a curved cutout here. On the back side, it's all one grain and it's very, very flat. If I hold it like this, you can see how this side is very flat, while this side is not flat. So for the reed to go on the mouthpiece, you'll notice on the mouthpiece, there is a flat side on the mouthpiece. You want to line up the flat side of the reed on the flat side of the mouthpiece. Some students will try to take the reed, put it in the hole like this. We don't want to do that. We want to set the flat part of the reed on the flat part of the mouthpiece, like so. I want to line the edge of that mouthpiece up with the edge of the reed. Be very, very careful as you're doing this not to touch the edge of the reed with your finger. The edge of the reed is very, very thin, and just even a little bit of touching of that tip of the reed can break it. When the tip of a reed breaks, the reed is useless and you have to replace it. They're not super expensive, but if we can make these reeds last a little bit longer, I know your grown-ups in your life will thank you for that. Once you get your reed even with the edge of the mouthpiece, use your left thumb and hold that reed in place, just like so. From here, we're going to take our ligature. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the screws are loose, which I did not do, so I need to put all that down and do it again. Make sure the screws are loose. Don't loosen them all the way. Don't take them out of the ligature. They can be hard to get back in, but just make sure there's a little bit of motion there in the ligature so it will be able to go over the mouthpiece and the reed. I'm going to pick up my barrel and mouthpiece, flat side to flat side, line up the tip of the mouthpiece with the tip of the reed, hold it in place with my left thumb, take my ligature, and now I want my ligature, I want the screws to be facing me, and as I put this over the mouthpiece, I'm being very careful not to hit the edge of the mouthpiece with the edge of the ligature. I've seen many times where students, the reed might be off center, they put the ligature down, and that ligature will actually just slice a line right through the reed, making it unplayable. So keep that reed in place, slide the ligature over very, very carefully. And now that it's there, I want to get that ligature down where it's on the darker part of the reed. I don't want it to be on any of this lighter part of the reed where you can see the grain. So if I need to loosen it a little bit more to get it to go down a little further, that's fine. When you put the ligature on, as you start fiddling with it and start moving it down, you might notice that your reed starts to shift out of place. It might go off to the side like that, might go off to the side like that, might stick up too high, might go down too low. That's okay. As you get that ligature on, just start working, put your thumb on the bottom of the reed, just start working it back up, and line up the tip of the mouthpiece with the tip of the reed. Once all that's in place, you can tighten the screws. You don't need to over tighten these screws. Just tighten them enough to where it holds the reed in place. Once you start feeling resistance in the screw, you know you've gone far enough. If you're trying to power through that resistance, you might break your reed, and it definitely will not vibrate when you go to play it. So my reed is together on the mouthpiece. I'm going to do a check real quick. I have my barrel connected to the mouthpiece. The ligature is over the reed. It's on the darker part of the reed, not over the grain parts. The reed is straight up and down on the mouthpiece, flat part on the flat part. As I look at the reed here, I see that the tip of the reed is even. I might see just a small sliver of the tip of the mouthpiece going past it. That's okay. But remember, if your reed is too high, going past the mouthpiece, or if it's too low, where you see a big hole, you want to make sure to get that reed right into the correct place. This is very, very important to get a sound, and lock it in place there.